Welcome to the Leadership Purpose with Robin podcast. I'm your host, Robin L. Owens, PhD, and this is where we dive in each week to give advice, tools, and tips for high-achieving women leaders, and we talk about leadership purpose and its importance for you. I am a college professor, and when I am not doing that, I am speaking, writing, coaching, mentoring, and teaching high-achieving women leaders how to find, and not only find, but how to stay in alignment with their leadership purpose so they can make a meaningful difference right there in their career, leadership, or business. Okay, let's dive in. Before we get into the episode, I have an exciting invitation for you. Hi, everyone. This is Dr. Robin, and I want to let you know and invite you to a new group I started. It's called the Leadership Purpose Community. The Leadership Purpose Community. And it's a group that I think would be a really good fit for you as a listener of the podcast, because it's an extension of the podcast and we discuss a lot of the issues we do in the podcast and even more. And we'll be focusing on finding fulfillment in our work through leadership purpose. We'll address issues that face high-achieving women, issues and challenges, and we also will celebrate the achievements of high-achieving women. And you know, as I always say, what I mean by high-achieving women, women who are professional, ambitious, goal-oriented, doing all the things and supporting everyone else. This group is for you. And so I think you'd really enjoy it. And I'd love to have you come and join us. Love, love, love to have you come and join us. So if you're interested, come on over to Facebook and search for the Leadership Purpose Community, or go directly to the website, www.facebook.com/groups/Leadership Purpose Community. Again, www.facebook.com/groups/Leadership Purpose Community. I'd really love for you to join us. Hope to see you there. Okay, let's get to the episode. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Leadership Purpose with Dr. Robin podcast. We're so glad you're here and that you take time out of your busy day and schedule to listen in. And if you get a chance, I would appreciate it if you can rate and subscribe to the podcast. It would be wonderful. I would really, really appreciate that. All right. So today we are talking with Amy Budd. Now, let me tell you a little bit about Amy. Amy is a HeartMath trainer, an equine coach, a healing arts coach, and evolving souls is her passion. Teaching people to be in their emotional integrity, and she will tell you later how that's related to horses. That's what she does. It is part of her mission. And after 20 years in the business world, she made a shift and combined her love of horses with her business experience in a really creative way. I can't wait to get into this conversation. And she works with individuals, teams, and organizations to discover the essential self, become heart-centered, and learn the value of working together like a herd of horses. And she'll say more about that later. Welcome, Amy Budd.
Oh, thank you, Robin. It is such a joy and privilege to be here and get to spend time with you. I love talking to you.
I love talking with you too, and I love your work. It's so interesting. I just can't wait to get into it because it's fascinating. I can't wait for everybody to hear. All right, so
it's fascinating for me too. I love what I do.
So we gave them a little clue and a little hint in the bio, right? But why don't we start with just tell us about who you are first, and then tell us about your work.
Yeah, boy, who I am. We could have, I think, a whole podcast on that. Some days I feel like, I've got a resume that reads like I've got ADD. Life's been a really fun journey. I have been evolving my whole life, and I think I really love that part about myself. So early on, as a kid, loved animals. I've always loved animals. I wanted to go to vet school. Discovered I was really the worst combination of Dr. Dolittle and James Harriet. And that was not my path. I did work in a clinic for years and years, not as a veterinarian, just as a technician. And my now husband, I know why I'm divorced. dear Lord, I hid animals in the garage. I rescued for years. Anyway, I knew that was not my path. So ended up, of all things, he was a Allstate insurance agent. And so we were moving a lot in our young married life. And I ended up I was a wrong number, getting a call from a Mary Kay beauty consultant of all things. I didn't wear makeup. That was not my wheelhouse. I thought this woman was nuts. Ended up meeting with her. Long story short, I signed on the dotted line, became a Mary Kay beauty consultant, and ended up having 45 consultants across the country, over 350 customers, 2 cars, was on a trajectory, and actually grew up. I really learned about people, what you can and can't. You really cannot motivate people. You can inspire people, but I had a lot of hard lessons in that environment, and was an overachiever. I mean, I didn't know at the time, but statistically, I was in the 0.02% of the company.
Wow.
For as quickly as I did everything with the cars and all of that stuff. And again, life threw a curveball. Had kids, moved, got divorced, things changed. Was actually teaching horseback riding, and during that, I created a horse treat, and that launched a 20-year career in the pet food industry.
So did you say you created a horse treat?
Cookies for horses.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah. So created it, developed it, launched it, ended up in a huge catalog. Again, a learning curve like nobody's business about what it takes to go from, zero to hero in the manufacturing industry. And this was 20 years ago. And of course, there were no women. There was one other woman that I knew of at the time in the manufacturing industry, and especially in the pet food industry. So it was a long journey to go from, product development to launch to then at one point getting picked up by a fairly good sized distributor. I was in 13 different states. So I've had just, like I say, a fun journey to get where I'm at. I love being in business, and I help loving other people in business and businesses.
Yes. I have to just ask you about the horse treat. All right. So, and so,
Okay.
I said at the beginning, I'm so fascinated by your work, and we had this conversation before, and it's not something that I hear every day. I don't know about the other listeners. So how do you decide I'm going to make a treat for horses? You talked about your passion for animals, and it's always been there.
Right.
But where'd the idea of a treat come to actually turn into a business?
I was at that point in my life, I was a centered riding instructor and a Tellington Touch practitioner. So I was very involved with the horse industry, the horse world, helping competitive riders. And I just, on a whim, thought, and I love to bake, I thought it would be a fun thing to do for all my students. And so I made these treats at Christmas time just as a gift and thought, oh, this will be fun, Merry Christmas, blah, blah. And everybody came back to me and said, oh my God, these are like crack. We want more. And so I thought, well, okay. So I made more cookies, and, one thing led to another. And then, like I say, it just took on a life of its own. And again, at that point in time, nobody was doing that. There was one commercialized treat, Mrs. Pastures, on the market at the time. There were no other high-end kind of gourmet type horse treats.
Yes. Wow. Congratulations. I know it was then, but still, congratulations for doing that.
Well, thank you. It was fun. Like I say, it was a fun journey. I got picked up by a huge catalog. Again, I had no idea. I'd never done catalog work. So I've had a learning curve that was, it was steep at the time.
That's why I'm saying congratulations, because it was a big deal. I mean, looking back, Mom, you're probably so far removed from it, but hearing it now, thinking like back then, and you're talking about the challenges, and you did it anyway and had the amount of success you had. Good for you.
And as a single mom with a 2-year-old and a 5-year-old.
That's an accomplishment all by itself.
I guess you're right. And I think that is probably an interesting thing with high achieving women. I think there's a lot that we just look at and go, we take it for granted. It's just,
Yes.
I guess we don't celebrate some of the milestones that we should.
Yeah. And I think we're so busy we just don't see it.
Yeah. I don't see it.
And it's just a part of the everyday life and work. Yeah.
Right. And who we are.
Yeah. Yeah. So tell us what you're doing these days. That was then. Tell us about now.
Yeah, the then lasted a long time. I also ended up, after the treats, I ended up developing a full pet food line. So I had a cooked food, a raw food, and a dehydrated food. And again, did that for 20 years. It was fantastic. I loved it. And like many things, the industry itself changed. Originally, it was very small, a very intimate industry. Everybody knew everybody. And then a lot of the big players got involved. A lot of the big human food manufacturing companies started buying up pet food companies, and the industry changed, and it didn't fulfill my soul anymore. I've always been, of course, involved with the animals. I've always had horses. And I don't know how else to describe it, but I felt called to go back to the horse work. And I found a program here in Colorado and participated. It's a two-year pretty intensive internship that you've got to go through to be a certified coach, as far as an equine certified coach for the type of work I do, and absolutely fell in love with it. And then COVID hit.
Oh.
So it was, kind of a mixed bag. It's been a little bit slow to get started, but the horses, and again, I think I grew up initially in Mary Kay. I think as a long-term entrepreneur, solopreneur in the pet food industry, I evolved. And anybody that owns their own business, I think, can relate to that process that you go through of, the fear, the self-doubt, finding confidence, fear, self-doubt, finding confidence.
Yes.
We kind of get on that hamster wheel. And coming back to the horses, I really had to go way, way, way deep inside and take a hard look at what is driving this bus. Is it really that I'm, why am I driven? What is that voice? And I think in today's environment, especially in leadership, in real estate, we talk about, location, location, location. And I think we're shifting into the business world. I think kind of the paradigm shift we're in now is awareness, awareness, awareness. I think we've got to become so much more self-aware before we can actually then really recognize and become aware of our people, our teams, our herd, if you will, and help everybody move forward. And so for me, looking at the horses now in a totally different way, horses are truly amazing. They're considered sentient beings. And what that means is they have the ability to sense and experience emotions. And so their survival depends on the ability to be able to read, recognize, and evaluate any other being's intention, whether it's, a dog, a human, a deer in their pasture, whatever it is. They've got to be able to recognize what the intention of that other being is and make a split decision. So they have a very heightened sense of awareness, self-awareness, and awareness of others. So when I work with people, it's helping them physically feel what that feels like to be in a coherent state. And that's where the HeartMath comes in, is really learning to tap into the wisdom of your own heart and experience those different emotions. And for myself, when I got involved with the horse work and had to take the hard look, I really realized a lot of what's been driving my bus for so many years and the go, 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 do was I didn't feel good enough. It's that feeling of got it, inadequacy. I'm not, I wasn't, I'm not enough as I am.
Yes.
And so I think for a lot of women, and leaders, not just women, I don't think it's exclusive to women. I think men experience the same thing, is to keep asking that question of yourself of, are you in your emotional integrity? Are you really doing this because it's your soul calling you to that higher purpose, or are you doing it because it's an old tape that's running in the background?
Yeah, that's an important question. Yeah.
And a hard question to ask.
Yeah.
Because it really causes that deep dive, to your soul.
Yeah, it's a really soul searching question. It's hard and necessary. It sounds like you're really committed to the work that you're doing now and this kind of soul fulfilling work for you. Tell us what you enjoy most about it.
Oh boy, I don't want to say that's a hard question.
Or maybe a couple things instead of narrowing.
Yeah, I was going to say there's so much, because for me it's so multifaceted, and I do a lot of things. So I mean, like I say, I've kind of created this melting pot based on all my years of this and that and that. And so I'm licensed to do the DISC assessments and the behaviors, motivators, emotional assessments, which again, I love. It's a level of awareness. And then bringing people to HeartMath where they can experience what coherence is and really getting in touch with that inner wisdom themselves. And right now, in fact, it tickles me. I hear a lot of people talking about, happiness and, happiness coaches, and happiness is contagious. And it is, I'm not going to lie, but it's emotions that are contagious, both good and bad. And it's really coherence that we're looking for that's contagious. That's the contagion we want, is coherence. And that's what the horses have. Horses are automatically in a coherent state, partially because they don't have the complicated brain that you and I have. We're living in the present sometimes, but mostly we're living in the past or we're living in the future.
So when you say coherence, what do you mean?
Right. When you are in a state of coherence, you are in your optimum actual physiology, if you will. You've got your heart, your mind, and your emotions all synchronized, and you are performing at your optimum. And so teaching people how to achieve that through the HeartMath tools is a game changer, because then you've got truly what they call the herd field effect. So you and I, our heart is about the size of our fist. And every time that heart beats, it puts out an electromagnetic impulse.
Okay.
Science can measure this. This isn't Amy being a weirdo. This is documented 20 years of scientific research from the HeartMath Institute. So they can measure that field around you that's about 3 feet. So you have the ability, whether you are aware of it or not, when you are working side by side with another person, communicating with another person, you have the ability to impact their field based on what's feeding your field. Is it positivity? Is it a renewing emotion like joy, like happiness, even just calmness? Or is it frustration, fear, anger? And we've had 2 years of a globe.
Yes.
Being fed nothing but fear and frustration and anxiety. So it's fascinating. And so a lot of times people don't know. And so to just shift to happiness isn't necessarily a realistic or attainable goal if you've been running in fear and frustration for 2 years.
Yes.
That becomes your physiology's norm. That's what your body thinks is normal. And so learning to shift it takes work.
And you help people make that shift.
Yes. And so there's actually an app for that.
There's an app for everything.
Yeah. The HeartMath Institute has the technology now that you can hook to a sensor and you can actually see when you are in a state of coherence, and you can learn to shift yourself into that coherent state. So when you stand with a horse, because the horse heart is 5 times the size of the human heart, so it's about the size of your head, because their field is so big and they are automatically in a state of coherence, when you are working with the horse, it's almost like you can't help but get coherent.
Oh. Because
you're in that field together, you're exchanging that energy, if you will. And for a lot of people, it's very live. It can be pretty dramatic. It can be very emotional because a lot of people have never physically felt what that experience is.
Oh.
And of course, my guys are Clydesdales, so they're huge and they're pretty spectacular to begin with.
Yes. So you were talking about the things you really enjoy. So are those some of those?
So seeing people and watching my horses work, watching my horses take somebody. In fact, I just worked with a ER doctor the other day. This man is 70 years old, of course, and he still was practicing all during COVID. So has had 2 years of just, a nightmare. I didn't know it at the time. I knew the wife called me after the fact that she was actually ready to leave him and she had not told anybody. And they came and spent a weekend with me. We worked with the horses, and watching my horses work with this man and reconnect himself to his heart. I usually don't get emotional when I'm participating, of course, because I'm the facilitator and I couldn't help myself.
Wow.
It was the most astounding thing I've ever seen. And I let him kind of regroup, and I asked him and I said, what happened for you? If you can, share that with us, me and his wife. And He said, honestly, he said, it's the first time in I don't know how many years I feel alive again.
Oh,
Yeah, there's no words for that for me.
yes. That's amazing.
That's amazing.
And you facilitate that interaction. I know the horse brings the coherence, but you facilitate how they kind of engage with each other.
Yes, and basically kind of help do the preparatory work with the person, set the stage, set the environment, create that container so that, yes, then the magic can happen with the horses.
That's amazing.
Yeah, their horses are truly, just a gift. They are amazing healers, and we have a lot to learn from them.
Well, you're giving me a lot to learn just from this little bit that you're telling me now. I know we had conversation before, but now I'm something about the light bulb went on. Like I got it. I just got it right then. All right. So now you've had a wide range of experience, which all great things. And you shared with us, starting with Mary Kay and moving on through the treat, which I like. Something about a treat. I guess the little girl in me says, oh, a treat, and for horses. So anyway, with all your experience, what can you share with those who are listening from your experience and expertise from any area? You can just pick whatever part of life you want to share or your journey, experience, expertise. And imagine that you're talking to a woman who's a high achieving woman. And by that, I mean, she's ambitious, professional, has the goal, very achievement oriented, supports everybody else in her personal life and professional life. It's just kind of her role. And people often think she doesn't even need support. And
Right.
so I created the podcast for that person, right? Because it supports them. So I invite people with you with such a variety of background and experience in your professional and personal life to say, what have you learned that you could share with others? So given that, what can you say to that person?
Yeah, I think that is really interesting. And then I think, also as that woman, we make it look easy. And I think that's why people don't think you need any type of emotional support. You don't need any of the kudos. You don't need, because we are going to make it look easy and we are going to trudge on regardless. But I think what I have probably learned more than anything, especially with the horses, is not just that emotional integrity place, but you will have the burnout at some point in your life. Something's got to give somewhere, whether that's professionally, whether that's in your personal life. I do think you've got to learn to put your own oxygen mask on first so that you've got enough to give. And I think you've got to really take, like I said earlier, that hard look of what is driving that bus. Is it really your soul's purpose that you're working towards? Because I think when you are in that lane and you are striving towards your soul's true purpose, it's not work. I don't feel like I work at all. It's a joy.
Yeah.
And I've heard people say that, but now to get to live it,
yeah,
totally different ball game. And I loved the pet food and I was, that was great, but this is such a different feeling. And so I think, again, to continue that self-awareness journey of really figuring out how to tap into your heart's wisdom so that you are having the conversation with your higher self and you are really fulfilling that soul's purpose, because then I think the bucket is automatically full.
Yes. And I agree wholeheartedly. And as you know, my work is about leadership purpose. And so when you hear the term leadership purpose, what comes to your mind?
Again, for me, it's that coming from that place of being heart-centered, heart-connected, acting really because I think when you're in that place, you are acting in everyone's best interest. And again, that's where I really had to kind of grow up back in the day in Mary Kay, because, I was the one winning the cars. I was the one, getting to walk on stage. But I had to learn how to help that entire group of women, right, to move with, because you don't achieve, do any of that stuff unless you are helping all those people up with you. And I think a lot of time in today's business environment, we don't see things that way.
Yes.
We don't bring everybody up with us. It's about our own achievement, our own kind of self-centeredness, if you will. And so I think if we can reconnect to that heart and have everyone's best interest and think of, again, collectively, If I can activate every single heart in my team or organization, and I have that herd field effect where I've got everyone in coherence, you're unstoppable.
Oh, I can only imagine.
It's palpable when I'm with a group and I've got everybody in that space and we're doing either a heart focused breath, we're doing the quick coherence technique. It is palpable for the group when you have that. It's fascinating.
Yes. Wow. And you do this work with teams and organizations, individuals
Yes.
and teams.
Yep. Yes. And the
People. Yeah.
Yeah. And the HeartMath aside from the horses.
Mm-hmm.
I love it when I can marry the two, but the HeartMath is, the coherence piece is a standalone.
Mm-hmm.
The resilience advantage training is a standalone on its own.
I see. So fascinating, Amy. This is so fascinating. Is there anything you'd like to share that I didn't ask you that just kind of popped into your mind, or you say, oh, I just had this thought, or here's one more thing?
Not that I can think of.
Okay, well, you have such a fascinating story, and your work is an inspiration to everyone, I'm imagining, who's listening right now. If they want to hear more about you and know more about what you're doing or just connect with you, how can they be in touch with you?
Yeah, so you can visit the website, which is wholeheartranch.com. I actually also have, if you're interested, a free ebook that's Leadership Lessons from Horses that talks about the coherence, kind of the different idea of, your leading style. The dominant horse isn't always the leader.
Oh.
Yeah, there's a whole lot of things that horses can teach you about your leadership style. Do you lead by example? Do you lead from the front? Do you know how to lead from the rear? So, like I say, the horse work is fun. Anyway, you can download the ebook if you'd like at businessherdDynamics.com. And then, of course, my phone number is on the website as well. You can schedule a consultation call.
That sounds great. And that ebook sounds great. And we'll be sure to put that information, your website and the connection to the ebook in the show notes so people can get that. Tell us the title of the ebook again.
It's Leadership Lessons from Horses.
I love that. Leadership Lessons from Horses. Now, where else do you get this? This is what I was trying to tell you, Amy. This is an amazing conversation. Thank you for taking your time to be here. Really appreciate it and appreciate you. Okay, everyone. And if you want to be in touch with me, you can contact me on my website, robinlowens.com, robinlowens.com. Or I would be happy to hear from you on social media. Just message me, all social media channels, Robin L. Owens, PhD, Robin L. Owens, PhD. And until next time, this is Dr. Robin. Thank you for tuning into this episode of the Leadership Purpose with Robin podcast. If you enjoyed it, head on over and rate and subscribe so you never miss an episode. New episodes drop every week, and I can't wait to hang out with you again soon. Meanwhile, this is Robin signing off. See you next time.